One more thing. Jason Kidd is changing minds. How did he do it? And how is Jaden Hardy's confidence really taking a step forward? We'll talk about all that and more right now.
I'm here because I have to be.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
That's it. It's me versus the machine. Don't let his whiteness take away from his quickness.
You can rest later. You're young.
I never recovered beer.
Wait. One more thing.
Yeah, welcome. You are locked on, still locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and your best friend covering the Dallas Mavericks on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today, I want to talk about Jaden Hardy. Jaden Hardy talked to the media today, and I want to talk about his little confidence run that he's having right now. Where did that come from? What does that mean for him? What have we seen from him in this little run? We'll talk about that with Jaden Hardy. But I gotta start here. It's kind of hard sometimes to admit when you're wrong, right? Hard to admit when you look at what a team is doing. You take in all this information. I'm covering this team every single day. You take in all this. And you give an opinion. And I do this every single day. And I've done this since 2017. Even before that, 2015, I started covering the Dallas Mavericks. And I've been covering this team and I've been covering the NBA. And sometimes you form opinions and all of a sudden you form an opinion. You feel real strong and hard about it. And one of those was that I thought Jason Kidd was not a good coach for the Mavericks. I thought Jason Kidd should be done as the coach of the Dallas Mavericks. There was a moment after the trades, March 5th, the Mavs lose to the Pacers. Their defense just looked completely terrible. They lost 5 out of the last 6 games. They were in the fight for in the standings. They needed every single game, and they lost 5 out of 6. Lost to a team, the Philadelphia 76ers, without Joel Embiid. The Pacers should have been an inferior opponent, and yet they come in and they just dominated the Mavericks. I mean, their defense looked like it had no business being on the floor with them. They lost to the Cavs on the Max Strus shot, which was a rough one too. They lose to the Celtics and get absolutely dominated, and you go, man, this team is just far off. And what started to pop up was all these things that we'd seen before. The Mavs hanging their heads when their threes didn't go down. The Mavs hanging their heads when they didn't get the right call. The Mavs defensive rotations not being right. The Mavs not communicating. A bunch of things we've seen over and over and over again. You go, all right, well, if they continue to have these issues, then what is it? What's the common denominator of all this? And then you have Jason Kidd come in, say things like,
You gotta ask them. I'm just the coach.
Which he also said recently, which I found very interesting.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
But then he comes in and says that he never gets too high, never gets too low. Doesn't feel like there's any urgency. There was the stuff last year where he said he wasn't even concerned that the Mavericks were going to miss the playoffs, and then they missed the entire postseason. It was an abject disaster for the team. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I think it's time. I knew they weren't going to do it. I wasn't saying the Mavericks should do it right now, but I thought, all right, it's time. They need a new voice. They need somebody else to come in here and run this. And so that's when I got to that point with it. I thought I was confident that the Mavs could win with Jason Kidd. We saw it going into the 2022 Western Conference Finals. The Mavs could win with Jason Kidd as the coach. But then I got to a point where I was like, all right, you made these trades. You got Luka and Kyrie. You've really got to make this work. Like, it's going to start getting real desperate if this team all of a sudden slips a little bit here. They lost 5 of 6. If they go on if this continues on, and I should have couched it and said something's got to change, because guess what? Boy did it change. The Mavs went on to won a ton more games to end that season. They ended up moving up the standings. They got to 5th. They got out of the play-in. Their defense completely turned around, and they were the best defense. They went and beat the Sacramento Kings 2 games in a row. They went and beat the Warriors. They went and beat the Rockets in that overtime comeback game. They beat the Heat at the end of the season. This team just continued to impress, continued to show who they were, and that Jason Kidd was the leader that could get them there. But even me, I wasn't even the biggest Jason Kidd hater. Some of you in the comments on YouTube think that I am. But I was not the biggest Jason Kidd hater. That belongs to the fire Jason Kidd guy. This was a guy, if you do not follow the Dallas Mavericks, or let's say you're a Celtics fan that's checking in on a podcast about the Mavericks for whatever reasons you could be doing that. This is a guy that for years now has been championing this idea of firing Jason Kidd is a Mavs fan that's very emphatic on the fact that Jason Kidd was the problem with everything that happened with the Dallas Mavericks. He even, on April 5th, 2023, was at a game. He wears this cape. He's got Mavs hat on, and he's got this Fire Kid shirt. And he tries to start the chant, Fire Kid, Fire Kid. He gets kicked out of the arena. And it became this big thing. He blew up on social media about it and all this. He gets kicked out of the arena. Well, somebody caught up with this guy, the Fire Kid guy, and you'll never guess what he's saying now.
I was wrong. I don't know ball. I would say my man earned an extension. I was harder on Jason Kidd than maybe anybody on planet Earth. I got kicked out for it. But how do you not give this man his flowers right now? Jason Kidd knows ball. I'm sorry, and I love you. And if y'all win the finals, I will burn my Fire Jason Kidd shirt because I don't know ball and Jason Kidd does.
You got to admit when you're wrong sometimes. Even the Fire Jason Kidd guy, it had become his identity. It had become who this guy was as a fan. Certain people have certain things. We got the great CBA Mavs on Twitter. He's all about the CBA. We got Luka Doncic's great account, just covering Luka Doncic's shoes. You got Mavs Tracker, tracking all of the Mavs jerseys and things like that. Great stuff from all these people. Mavs highlights, posting highlights all the time for us on Twitter. Got all these people with these identities now that, you know, are contributing to this great fan base, to this great community of Dallas Mavericks fans. You got people that host podcasts daily and just spout their mouth off. But this guy was the Fire Kid guy, and he came in and said,
I was wrong. I don't know ball.
What kind of success do you have to have a guy like Fire Kid, who that was his identity, come in and say,
I was wrong. I don't know ball. I would say...
And I mean, if you can get a fan like that was online, that was, you know, started as a social media warrior, Twitter fingers, all that, but then put it into practice in real life and went to the arena and went Fire Kid and wore this shirt, and Kid could have saw him and all that. If you get that guy to turn around and say,
I was wrong. I don't know ball.
He should get an extension is what he said in the middle of there. If you turn that guy's opinion around, you must be doing something right. Because in the day and age that we're in right now, it is hard to get people to move off their spot. If you've ever had a conversation with anybody about politics lately, if you had a conversation with anybody about vaccines lately, if you had a conversation with anybody about anything in the world right now, how you put the toilet paper became a conversation. Do you put it with the toilet paper, like the roll coming outward or the roll coming inward? That became a whole thing. What do you do with your cereal? Do you put the milk first or the cereal first? All these kind of opinions people have now, and they hold to them, and it becomes part of their identity. They hold on to it. If that guy says that Jason Kidd should get an extension and that he doesn't know ball and that Jason Kidd does, you're doing something right. And I think that's an amazing testament, and it's one of the things that I think Kidd should get credit for in this whole run. And it's not just about that guy. It's about, there are a lot of doubters, myself included. I started out this whole thing talking about how I thought that Jason Kidd was not the right coach for this team. And now we've seen 2 out of 3 years that if you've got the right team, Jason Kidd can get you there. And that is enough for an NBA coach. That's enough for an NBA. That's enough proof of concept for an NBA coach to say, all right, you got this. And there were so many doubts about Kidd coming in. I had them. I had doubts about many things about Jason Kidd. And maybe that definitely colored my opinion about Jason Kidd. He came in, you had the weird stuff in Brooklyn where there's rumors that he was trying to get a front office job and then he didn't get it. And then he went to Milwaukee, and then Milwaukee seemed to underperform at times. And then he took credit for Giannis, and you're like, okay, well, what's going on with that? And there's just weird things with Kidd. And then he comes to the Mavericks, and you're like, all right, well, let's see. Then he goes to he goes to the Lakers and becomes an assistant. They win the title in the bubble. And then he comes to the Mavericks, and you're like, all right, now what? Wins in his first year, goes to the Western Conference Finals on a team that had no business being there. Incredible run. And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, okay, all the doubts that I had before are starting to get washed away. And then 2023 happens where they miss the postseason entirely. And then you're like, okay, oh God. And so for me, he went back down to 0, where all the credit that you gave him for 2022 came back down to 0 after last year because it was just a rough one all around. And yes, now looking back, it was probably the amount of talent that was around. It was losing Jalen Brunson for nothing. It was a trade at the end of the season that was hard to try and make work in the middle of a season with Kyrie coming over. Harder than we thought. But now you've got guys like Fire Jason Kidd. That was his handle. That was his name. Turning and coming on your side. That's an amazing vote of confidence, I think, for the job that Jason Kidd has done for the Mavericks. Coming up, let's talk about what's changed for Jason Kidd. Let's talk about what he did. And there was a moment that he talked about that where he changed. And then we'll talk about Jaden Hardy. We'll talk about all that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds that you can use to get in on the action and go have some fun playing and watching some of these games. Go check out the Mavs in in Game 4. They're a 2-point favorite right now, just -2 for the Mavericks. So not getting the full 3 points. That's kind of interesting to me. But if you feel like the Mavericks are going to win by more than 2 points, take it. Go ahead and see what you got. NBA Finals, Mavs plus 185 to go. The Timberwolves plus 4,100. Those are large odds to win the championship right now. So you can still get some positive odds for the Mavericks to win the championship if you want that. Mavs are minus 2,500 to win the Western Conference. So that one's kind of tough. Luka to win Western Conference Finals MVP, minus 1,900. Anthony Edwards still plus 1,500. Kyrie plus 3,800. Could Kyrie go off for like 45 and win that? Plus 3,800 is pretty good. Put $10 down. You get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. You can just put $5 on that. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Thanks for hanging out with me on Locked On Mavs. The one more thing, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. We appreciate each and every one of you that have subscribed and listened. Talking about Jason Kidd and how Jason Kidd is changing some minds around here, including my own, including some fans out there. We're talking about that. There's one thing I think Jason Kidd that changed about this team, and I was very fascinated to see this because you usually don't have coaches that say, all right, this is exactly the moment when this happened. Usually you ask a coach, what happened and when did this change? And they just kind of say some vague thing. And usually Kidd does that too. Well, Rachel Nichols recently talked to him about what changed for the Mavericks defense, and I was very fascinated to hear his answer.
I was wrong.
Not that guy. No, never mind. Hold on, this one.
When was the turning point, you think, when you became a true defensive presence? Was it through a lot of conversations? Kyrie was talking last night about heart-to-hearts, almost therapy sessions you guys have had, or was it just individual players pulling the rope?
Yeah, he gives too much of the information away. Yeah, there were some heart-to-hearts, some serious conversations, and I thought since March 7th, our defense has come together, and we really have believed and trusted one another on the defensive end, and it has helped us win some games when we weren't scoring the ball. So this group really believes in playing defense, but there were some heart-to-hearts and some long conversations with most players hate, but it's turned out to help us, and it has put us in this position.
March 7th is a very specific date.
It really is, because it was against Miami, and we understand their defense and the physicality, and I think that's when we became a really good defensive team.
That was the wake-up call. March 7th was literally Chris Traeger style, the game after they finished that Pacers game. And I said that Jason Kidd should be gone as the coach. This team doesn't have it. They lose 5 out of 6. They started to slide. If they slid too much, they're going to fall straight into the play-in. And that was not good enough for this team. March 7th, they play the Miami Heat. They hold them to 108 points. Everybody playing for them. Then they go to the Pistons and Bulls, and they beat both those teams handily. Golden State Warriors on March 13th. The Warriors have been playing really well. They hold them to 99 points. Then they lose to the Thunder. Luka doesn't play that game. Then they play the Nuggets, and they beat the Nuggets at home. And that was huge. And this team, all of a sudden, you start to feel and you start to believe that this team could really do something. They hold the Nuggets to 105 points, by the way. In the regular season, that's not a lot of points. And so March 7th changed. They had some heart-to-hearts. They had some moments. He has leaders in the locker room. He's got Kyrie. He's got Luka. He's got Markieff Morris. And all of a sudden, the defense started to figure itself out. Everybody sat up in their chair. Everybody got the wake-up call. And apparently, it came down on that time. And Jason Kidd, what he deserves credit for? He deserves credit for the defensive scheme because it's working with the personnel that he has now. Keeping to it, not changing it, not panicking. The panic, by the way, does not happen with Jason Kidd. It didn't even happen when the Mavs missed the postseason last year, which I thought was a fault. I still do kind of think it was a fault. But now it looks like a strength. Now it looks like a positive that this team doesn't panic no matter what. No matter what's happening. The boat could be underwater. This team's not going to panic. They could be down 40. This team's not going to panic. Because they're taking on the mentality of their head coach, the mentality of their star in Kyrie Irving, and the mentality of their star in Luka Doncic that we can do anything. We can pull off any kind of heist that we want to. Keeping Luka and Kyrie together. After last season, the way that it ended, the way Luka was so frustrated, the way that we started looking and I started thinking about, oh my God. I had this moment at the end of last season. What happens to this podcast if Luka leaves? Yes, I'm very aware of the success that Luka Doncic brings. I'm good at this. I do not think I'm as good at this as what Luka Doncic brings to this show. I understand that many of you, especially on YouTube, are watching, listening because of Luka Doncic. Hello, Ljubljana and Slovenia. I understand that. I had that moment because Luka was it was the first time we had seen him this frustrated about a situation, about this team, about who this team was. Kyrie came over in the trade, was going to be a free agent. Everything went wrong. Didn't look like anything was going to be great in this whole situation. That could have gone either way. Kyrie Irving had been a flight risk. He had requested a trade out of Brooklyn. He had requested a trade out of Cleveland in places. And Jason Kidd kept them together. You got to give him credit. Give Nico Harrison credit too, probably Mark Cuban, probably Luka and Kyrie give him credit too for not hanging their heads too hard and taking it as motivation to Luka get his conditioning right, Kyrie to step up as a leader on the team. But give Kidd credit for it. He deserves some credit for keeping those guys together, keeping them believing in what this team could be. Even at the beginning of the season, they bring in Grant Williams. They got Derek Lively as a rookie center, and some things are working and some things are really not at the beginning of the season. And he kept them together, kept them afloat. Then they start adding the right pieces. This team starts coming together, and now this team is one win away from the NBA effing finals. And that's insane. So, just wanted to give some credit to Jason Kidd for that. Let's talk about Jaden Hardy, because I think Jaden Hardy is a real fascinating case. And another reason why Jason Kidd deserves some credit is because he's helped keep some of these guys confident, even if they don't have a role. Jaden Hardy is a player in his second year. He's about to turn 22 years old in July. About to turn in July. He had a very interesting rookie season, where his rookie season, he started to play a lot next to Luka or Kyrie or both of them at the same time. And he was one of those guys that really popped to me. He's a rookie, second round pick coming into this, where he had a really inefficient year with the G League Ignite. And he comes in and he's the only guy that's not afraid. All these other guys are panicking. They don't want to shoot. The Mavs boat is underwater. They're not going to make the playoffs. And Jaden Hardy's like, I don't care. Give me the ball. I'll take the shot. I'll take the ball away from Luka. I'll take the ball away from Kyrie, and I'll go take my own shot. And so he had a pretty awesome rookie year. He played 48 games. He spent some time in the G League at the beginning of the season, but played some time, shot the ball really well, 40% from three. And then this year comes, you're like, all right, take the step up. Could he replace Tim Hardaway Jr. in the rotation? Questions we were asking each other. Is he the fourth guy? Can they trade? Should they trade Tim just to make room for Jaden Hardy in the rotation? All that stuff was being asked. Now this year in the regular season, his minutes are down. Field goal percentage down. 3-point percentage down. Free throw percentage even down. Just a down year overall. He starts the year averaging in the first 21 games that he played, 12 and a half minutes. You're like, okay, it's fine for the fourth guard off the bench or, fifth guard off the bench with Exum. Then the middle 29 games, Kyrie gets injured, a couple other things happen, 18 minutes a game. So he starts taking a step forward with his minutes. You go, all right, having some run here, but he didn't look that great. Like I said, field goal percentage down, 3-point percentage down, free throw percentage down. So then the last 21 games, guys get back, Kyrie's healthy. He plays 7 minutes a game, even farther down. And that doesn't account the last two games where he played like 28 minutes because nobody played. But he only played 7 minutes a game. So he went completely down to out of the rotation, basically. And now he's having this moment. He's having this moment in the Western Conference Finals. He plays 9 minutes in game one, gets a bucket, a tough bucket, 4 assists, moving the ball. Game two, 8 points, an assist, a steal in 11 minutes. Game 3, 7 points, 3 of 4 from the free throw line in 11 minutes. Has that moment where he goes one-on-one against Gobert. He also had a moment where he went one-on-one against Cat at the rim. Like a 7-footer. Straight up to him at the rim. Got the shot to go. Gobert, he gets the foul on him. Gets him off his feet. He had a moment in Game 6 against the Thunder, too, that I went back and watched where he went right at Chet at the rim. Chet is a great rim protector. Hardy went right at him, didn't care. Scored over him. He's had these huge moments right now, these moments of confidence, this little confidence run, and that's who he is. If you've ever been in a room with him or if you've ever looked at him from across the way, I have in our media day interviews and in other times since then. And like his smile is infectious. We've got the Hardy Party music for a reason because his laugh in this is just incredible.
Hardy, let's go party.
That's good. Right here. Shout out to a listener who made that for us. But his laugh is infectious. He's one of those guys where it just doesn't look like anything ever bad has ever happened to him. He's a puppy. He's like a little puppy dog. And you love it. And you love the mentality he brings to the team. And I love that he's having this moment. I love that he got 9 minutes in the Western Conference Finals, 11 minutes. He didn't even play that much in the OKC series. But then he comes out and he kind of played garbage time in the Clippers series, but he comes out and now he's being asked to play in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Different moments here and there, whenever this team needs him. Because Exum hasn't really taken a step forward. Tim is not really that playable right now. They need somebody else to be able to dribble the ball. They need somebody else to be able to make plays, take tough shots. And he can do that. He's having this moment, and I love it for him. I love it completely for him. A listener came up to me before the playoffs even started. I can't remember what game it was at the end of the season. Could have been the Detroit Pistons game at the end of the season. Could have been the Houston Rockets game. It was definitely a home game. I remember standing outside in the concourse, and a listener goes, "Hey, you think Jaden Hardy could have a role in the playoffs?" And I'm like, man, the way he's played this season, I don't know. I don't think so. I think all we can hope for is that he'll have a moment, like a quarter, where he goes off for like 10 points, 12 points. That was what I thought. That he'd have like one moment of that. And now we've seen him play real minutes, and that's awesome to me. You love to see it. Give credit to Jason Kidd. Give credit to Kyrie Irving because Kyrie's been the one in his ear. Jaden Hardy mentioned at practice today that he just soaks everything up that Kyrie says. He wants to, do the things that Kyrie does. Ask him about his workouts. Ask him about different moves. He talked about specifically the counters that Kyrie has. So when a defender goes one way, you got to be able to go the other. You got to be able to counter what the defender is doing or the defense is doing. If they give you multiple defenders or if it's a defender that's playing you up closer to you or playing you to your left side or playing you to your right side, you've got to have the right kind of counters for it. And Jaden Hardy's soaking up all this information. He said he wants to be like a sponge. And man, I still believe in Jaden Hardy. Growth is not always linear. Because his rookie season went better than we expected and his second year went worse than we expected, doesn't mean that he's not going to be a good NBA player. He's still just 21, going to be 22 soon. But man, I'm excited for him. I'm excited for him in this moment. He's helped the Mavericks. He's helped them in some big moments, hit some big shots, made some big passes, got to the free throw line. He's been awesome in this. I'm excited for him. I'm happy for him. That's One More Thing. Thanks for hanging out with me on the One More Thing. We'll continue to do more shows. We'll be back with the post-game show. I think Slightly will be there as well, so maybe we'll do the three-man weave again. Thanks for hanging out with me on Locked On Mavs. Hopefully the Mavs end it in 4, but we'll see what happens in the next one.